the East Coast has a lot more congested areas than the West Coast does. So
more than LA?
Huh?
So, like, even compared to like LA?
Even compared to LA, it's as a whole. Like California, you have all the major cities, but after that, what do you have in what's it called? The rest of the Pacific Northwest. You have Seattle, Portland, and that's about it.
San Francisco,
like, that's all California, and even those ones aren't really as congested as Los Angeles. Meanwhile,
it's
New York,
the coast, though.
Austin, Richmond, again, Raleigh, Charlotte, Atlanta, all on the East Coast. There's just so many more, DC even. There's so many more condensed areas in terms of population just along all the East Coast that it creates a more China-like situation in terms of how close people have to live in proximity to one another. That I think that's more of a ground. Plus, the media is East Coast biased. You know that.
So, another thing I noticed too was in Minnesota specifically, after all the protests and riots where people clearly were wearing masks, they weren't social distancing, and with Mayo Clinic being Minnesota is one of the best states for number of tests available. So after all that stuff happened where people were clearly out in public and right up next to each other, the cases didn't go up significantly, which is interesting. Is it because it's not that prevalent in Minnesota when you look at our numbers, or is it just all media pushing it as something bigger than it is? Or even if it's just the media pushing it, with how everything I understand about this virus, why didn't the numbers go up after that?
I think I have a couple of hypotheses. One might be, like you said, that's just not that prevalent here. The second is that the Chad bros all over the internet were right in saying, hey, being outside is probably the best thing for us if this thing is hurt by sunlight, which now some medical experts are coming about saying, yeah, actually being outside is good. So the lockdown seemed to have served a negative effect, according, if that logic follows through.
Well, if you think about it, it had to have, because I just don't see how locking people up in their homes is going to do anybody any good, especially if you still have to go to grocery stores, but we all go to the same stores. So you're more likely to interact with more people than you ever have before, because I can't go to this place or this place. We all have to go to one place.
Right. You lock down all the other auxiliary sort of businesses, but you, just by government mandate, deem certain places to be essential.
Yeah.
Hence, everybody, you create a funnel. It's the same thing I was talking about when they were closing down all the clothing stores. Everybody's going into Walmart and Target now instead of spreading out to places like Kohl's and JCPenney and whatnot. This is just one example. It seems to work counterintuitive to what the intention is. If the intention is to keep people away from one another, you are closing down more avenues for them to be able to go. Then you're closing down the avenues and you're funneling them into 2 or 3 specific locations instead of having 7 or 8 of them open.
I'm sorry, continue.
Well, as they slowly open places up too, let me throw this in there, like the candy store. As soon as something opens, people flood to it. So once they start opening one little thing here and there, you have concentrated people in those areas.
You should see downtown Minneapolis on weekends. Speaking of that, I work overnights downtown.
Yeah.
And now the bars are back open. They are way past their capacity they're supposed to be at, and downtown is nuts, and it's a lot of the social issues too taking over, but for the most part, just the number of people, it feels like downtown never changed. Our occupancy's been absolutely spiking on weekends, and it's just ridiculous. Everyone's coming back, everyone's getting out, everyone's getting hammered. You're absolutely right. Stuff's slowly opening. People aren't, following the dial, as old Timmy would say.
Yeah, I know.
I don't
Push
know.
the dial too far.
as far as like the lockdown goes, like if you could do it over again, just even not doing shutdown, but like if you actually want to destroy this virus, like what do you guys think about like a full on like no essential workers, like no like 100% everything shut down for 2 weeks or whatever the incubation period is, like
Well, and the government just
completely-
subsidizes us through that.
I'm not I don't want to get into those logistics. I'm just saying pure talking about how to like if you're going to do a lockdown, like do you think it would have been more effective if you say for 3 weeks everything shut down, like forget how we're paying for that, everything, just I'm just curious, like
I think you'd have
obviously
more debt.
even with the partial lockdown of essential workers, we still absolutely tanked our economy and went so much more in debt.
Yeah.
But if it would have been more effective if it was more of 100% like everyone stay in your home.
I don't even think you really needed to shut everything down for an extended period of time like so many governors did. My stance has always been if the government is going to do this, then it is right for them to at least cover workers' wages for the time they're not working. But how I would have covered it, again, this is me playing economic god here, but knowing the situation in China where they're welding people shut, I would have said, hey, weeks, nobody's going to be working. We are going to try to provide funds to every business to be able to remodel or prepare or whatnot, just to be able to adjust almost on the fly, and we'll give you like a grace period to be able to do so that we can prevent this sort of spread, and then open everything back up. Nothing gets closed down in its entirety. Everything stays open after that 2-week period.
Right.
Because now you've had, is it 6 weeks now? 6 weeks and still going for some people on unemployment who still aren't allowed to go back.
Yeah.
You know, you have this situation, this scenario where it's now uneven across the board. And I understand there needs to be unevenness in some places because Florida is being affected a lot more than Minnesota is. Still, give them 2 weeks to be able to adjust everything, to set their businesses up in a matter of which will be safe for people to continue to go to and be patrons of, and pay their workers. You know, pay their workers the funds that they need. Obviously, the business owners kind of slighted out of 2 weeks of business here, but at least they don't have to pay their workers or just have the payments come out of businesses and have the government put money into the business owners.
It's one way to do
Either way, it doesn't particularly. It makes it a lot less messy because you have fewer people that you have to account for with all these particular loans. That's
account for the people
what
actually
my
working.
thought would have been.
Yeah.
And this is something that I suggested, I think, the first week of the lockdown, the fucking black pill episode where I was losing my mind. I'm fairly sure that somewhere in that blackout I said, this is fucking moronic.
It is. Well, and
Pardon
just
the cussing. It's
the bias, though. Like, they choose big business over small business. Like, that's the part that really has me fucked up.
Of course they do.
The essential businesses are your Walmarts, your Targets, businesses like that. But your small mom and pop shop, that's a threat to everybody. We need to shut that down. Like, that's what's got me going the most about it.
All right, 2 questions. Are we recording?
Yeah, I just started recording, but I'll just
Are we waiting for
out.
Mitch?
Mitch said he couldn't make it, actually.
Okay.
He said he won't be able to stay awake.
Second, Ryan, are you
a
working
driverless episode, Jesus.
I know, right? It's going to be
again? Are
strange.
you working again, Ryan?
Part-time. Here and there.
The catering thing still? How impacted are you in like the catering aspect? So like for hotels, like our meeting space, we're at like 30% occupancy.
Sure.
And we're not allowed to do buffets. Like our breakfast actually is a buffet, and because it's not a normal, it's considered a restaurant, I guess, but because it's a buffet, we're still shut down, and we can't have our breakfast open downtown because it's a buffet. We could do single made to order things, but I mean the money is not there for us right now, so it's not, or the staff or the labor stuff, so that's not going to work. But like, what are you seeing?
I mean, it's constantly changing as the economy kind of changes, because our business is directly affected by who needs to put their kids in daycare.
Okay.
So if if businesses are shut down and parents are staying home, they don't put their kids in daycare. So we don't have as many numbers to serve. So what happened initially was our numbers got cut by like 50%.
Mm-hmm.
So then we had to lay a bunch of people off. As things are opening up, it's getting a little busier to the point where one person can't do it by themselves. Because we had it where you had to make meals for like 60 kids, when typically we're doing like 150 out of one kitchen. So 60, like we kind of measure it by 100 kids to one person. So when we have 150, you might need two people. And we're just starting to get over 100 in some of the areas, but I think it's just going to take a full opening before we actually start back up. So shutting everything down greatly impacted us, even though daycares were deemed essential. But if there aren't any kids to put in daycare, then we're not as busy as we could be. We're still around, but we're not as busy as we could be, so we can't employ as many people.
Because for a while, were you laid off, or were you just not working, not enough business?
I wasn't working. I think I got laid off around my birthday, March 24th.
That sucks.
So
Jeez.
It's been at least 2 full months of me not having much to do.
Have you been productive with your time at least? Or?
Oh yeah, I gotta be. I mean, I'm working around the house, doing shit here. I've probably cleaned and like organized every area of the house already, just because there's nothing to do. Getting kind of crazy, losing my mind a little bit. I want to go on a trip or visit some people, but what do you do?
Yeah,
I'm just kind of stuck here.
So when I was on that quarantine for when I thought I had it, and the first week I was sick, and then the second week I was feeling great. I was back to normal, but I still couldn't go back to work because I had to do a 14-day quarantine.
Right.
And like that second week where I was feeling good, I got so much stuff done around the house, like projects that have been just getting put off. Like our fridge, when we moved in, it didn't have water to it, so we couldn't make ice, couldn't get water out of it, and it's because they had a reverse osmosis filter. So I had the fridge pulled, the entire kitchen torn apart, bought new water lines, everything. And it was more difficult than I thought, but I got it done and it felt really good.
Yeah, time. Yeah. And I've had that same issue before when I'm working all the time and I'm like, God, I just want to get this done. You push it off a week, but now I have days to get shit done. It's a whole new world.
Your wife, is she still working?
No, not right now.
Okay. And because I know hotels have been obviously one of the things hit the hardest.
Yeah.
We hit double-digit occupancy 2 weeks ago on our report for the week. We had 11%, and it's June, which is normally our biggest month. Like last year, we did almost $900,000. This year, we did $44,000.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that was June's bad. I mean, April
you're down $800,000.
Yeah, I mean, we were going to be down $200,000 anyways, because the market.
Only gotta get worse. Nobody's gonna be coming to Minneapolis anymore.
Yeah, but being down half mil.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Downtowns are impacted the most with this for hotel stays. The suburbs are running probably 20-30%, which still is not anywhere close to what we're supposed to be at, and the rate you're getting is really bad compared to what it could be. Normally right now we're selling our rooms for $159, and right now we're selling for $99. So our revenue per available room, which is a really good metric in my industry, is
right.
We're making on our busiest nights $23 per room sold.
Wow.
Oh fuck.
And you're selling hardly any rooms.
The cost of cleaning is normally it's $30, but because everything's cut back so much, it's probably close to $19 right now. But Hilton just signed this big thing with Lysol for their clean stay program, so we have to buy all the Lysol stuff, and it's expensive.
Wow.
So the costs might have gone up, but yeah, we've been running at a deficit. Our salaries alone for a month for everyone that's working before we added people was 39 or 36 grand what we needed, and April we made a total of 14 grand the entire month.
So just negative. Yeah, that's crazy.
That's a bad night in April. That's a bad Sunday in April's 14 grand, and that's what we made as a total for the month. And it was Final Four last year, so we were down $900,000.
Wow.
Yeah, almost $800,000.
It's gonna be crazy to see who survives this.
the
how long they let it
psychological
go.
effects have to be taken into consideration too. Even after a supposed vaccine might show up, is that really going to instill confidence in the average Joe who watches any number of
You think
different?
it would?
I don't know.
What every business that we talk to in downtown, and it's like the meta center of all the big businesses are downtown Minneapolis, Minnesota for the most part. And everyone's saying like we are going to wait till we hear more about a vaccine before we bring people back. So as soon as there's a vaccine,
That's after the election. That's
Until
January. February.
until 2021.
a company in Maryland just got a $1.6 million from the government for vaccine studies.
Sure.
I read that on MSN last night that they just got that, and that's like $1.6 million. I don't know if that goes a long way or not a long way when it
Probably
comes
not.
to producing
Because
vaccines.
this is
but
a
That's all
year-long
fine and-
process.
Right, that's all fine and dandy. People are getting funding. Great, wonderful. That's no guarantee for breakthrough. Maybe it's progress. Maybe it's a dead end. I don't know. Great to hear news about the vaccine, but mostly these things take 12 to 18 months. And if this is a coronavirus, which is mostly, more closely akin, if I'm correct, to the flu,
yeah.
you don't have a fucking vaccine that gets rid of the flu like a vaccine gets rid of polio.
Okay, so that's true and false, because the problem with the flu vaccine every year is that they predict which strain they think it's going to be, and their efficiency rate is based off if they guessed correctly that's the correct strain or not. And that's why the flu shot is mostly incorrect, because they have like 5 different strains that they think they kind of choose between, and I know they haven't been accurate. They got it right like a year ago or 2 years ago or something like that, but normally they haven't gotten it right in the last 20 years. So since you know the exact strain, the SARS-2 CoV-19, whatever it is,
But hasn't
a
it
vaccine
mutated?
will be more effective than a flu vaccine because they can signal out the strain.
Right, I'm following. Okay, so the specific strain.
I mean, if it stayed as the same, though, but wasn't there talk of how this mutated in such a short amount of time, and it was
between
infecting
the Iranians and the Italians.
different ethnicities? Yeah.
Everything mutates. So that's another problem with the flu vaccine, is even if they get the correct strain and it mutates, they can be off. But because you're playing with one thing, even if it mutates, you should be able to correct that. Because I mean, it might not feel like it, but you got to remember that as far as epidemiology goes, we're the most advanced the world's ever. Not us specifically, but this point in time is the most advanced that it'll ever be.
Well, yeah, I guess the farthest along we've come, for sure. And
that, this might not seem like it, but our organizations are generally pretty effective when it comes to this kind of stuff. And you're letting private businesses play in this too, and that's who got the grant. It was a private business. So you think that it's not just a government center like the CDC, it's actual private businesses working on this. And I mean, also let's talk about that, what is it? Hydrochlor, I can't pronounce it.
Hydroxychloroquine?
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
I was listening to a senator who was on Tucker Carlson last night, and a doctor he was talking to was asked by a senator who was a doctor for 35 years from Missouri, what's going on, and why isn't this being used in Texas for frontline stuff? And he pretty much his answer was politics.
Yeah.
That's plain and simple, because Trump came out and said, hey, this might be effective.
Yeah.
And because Trump said it, everyone's like, no, it's not. But it's super cheap. It's been around for 50 years. There's plenty of it. And it's really easy to prescribe.
Part of it was the way he said it, I think, because he's just I've just heard good things. I hear good things. And then people are like, well, you heard good things. That's not a study. And then people start attacking him for that. But yeah, and then you fast forward 2 months and here we are. And they're like, oh yeah, I guess it's great.
Well, they just completed a study with 2,500 people, and it showed really good results. And they're in the process of a 5,000 person study of all frontline medical workers and trying to use it for prevention. Right now, that'll be over in 2 or 3 weeks, and then we'll have even more data. So it could be, I don't know if it's the answer, but it could be a giant solution to a lot of the problems. But it's just
help mitigate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and you're playing with the FDA, who's, even if it's, the cure for cancer,
Special interest there for sure, dude. I don't trust the FDA at all.
No, and I should go see if my fiance is on a call right now because you want to hear about she works for Boston Scientific,
right?
Medical devices, so she fights with the FDA, all the time. So if you want a biased opinion about them, I can go find her. But
should bring her on. Yeah,
she probably won't come on here. She's not basic enough.
It's all fucked. This whole thing has eroded ever little trust there might have been in organizations like the CDC and the WHO, because all along the way they've constantly gotten this wrong, and it's so demonstrably wrong, that it's not. You can't just chalk it up to it's constantly evolving situation. You cannot say that masks are ineffective, then have world governments hoard masks for the better half of 3 weeks, and then say, everybody should try to get an N95. That's utterly fucking ridiculous.
It's like what Fauci admitted. He said, we said that masks weren't as effective because we didn't want people going out and getting them because we wanted to save them for exactly what you were saying.
For the elites.
Yeah.
They won't say the word elite, but it is for the elites they wanted to save this stuff up on.
Medical staff is running out of PPE right now again. I just read on Buck Carlson's Twitter, he posted something about, I don't know how true that is, but I guess I didn't fact check it, but that medical professionals are running out of correct PPE on this too. And I don't know, it's so ridiculous. Are
they running out by using them as props for their fucking little TikTok videos that they make in the hospitals?
Yeah, just wasting them.
Fauci needs to be fired. I'm sorry.
A lot of people need to be fired.
We got the guy to do it, but we'll get to that in a second.
It goes all the way up to the fucking top. Fauci is one of them. Trump needs to take some kind of responsibility. All the Dem governors and the Republican governors, everybody who has fucking overreacted in either one direction or the other without being sensible, need to be fucking held to account. And we know it's not going to happen.
Right.
All the same, there still needs to be some principled stance that, hey, you guys are being very reckless and irresponsible here in a number of different ways, all for your little partisan games in politics, you elitist assholes.
Yep.
Get it together.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it's been, absolutely.
Well, I don't know. It's so it's so crazy.
Republicans are going to keep things open. We're going to close things down. The Dems are saying they're going to close things down. We're going to keep it open because fuck the Dems. It's so fucking tiresome.
That's exactly what it's been. Because I can think back to the beginning where you had Washington Post and all these different media outlets saying, what's the big deal? Why are you afraid of the coronavirus?
Kiss the Chineseman.
Yeah.
Go on, give him a hug, like the fucking mayor in Italy.
That was all the way up till February.
Hug a Chinese person day, which, by the way, if I remember correctly, that very Chinese person who was holding that sign also tested positive for COVID, and I believe that city was one of the major epicenters.
It was the big one
beginning for COVID deaths. So
power trip. Think about these governors who, generally, yes, they obviously have power being the governor of the state, but with Trump sticking to the 10th Amendment and saying, it's your call, you run it. I actually applauded Walz when this all first started because I thought at the very beginning of everything, he handled it well. And, I agree with, I'll agree with the first shutdown. Everything after that, he got power hungry, saw what he had. He still has the emergency powers of peacetime, blah, blah, blah. But it sucks because I don't trust the government.
Well, yeah, and he didn't stick to his guns during the protest at all.
No.
He just completely caved.
He folded to ideology.
Mm-hmm.
I trusted the CDC the most of any government organization, and they let me down. The last string I had of trusting a government agency or something, it kind of broke me a bit.
CDC, I had great praise for because they undermined the WHO and their fucking lies, and then all of a sudden, the CDC starts becoming shit as well, and I go, now what the fuck? What are we going to do about this? Everybody's trying to lie to us in some sort of fashion. Because I remember the WHO ready to come out with some sort of press conference. I forget what the topic was, but the CDC came out an hour prior and basically put out something that contradicted the WHO in such a fashion that the WHO had to postpone its presser for about 30 minutes before coming out and saying something that went along with what the CDC said and saying that, yeah, this is a big deal now.
Yeah, it's almost like they started calling each other like, wait, what are we going to say? We got to be on the same page here.
Yeah, hey, whoa, what was that? Well, and then like I don't know if it was who came out and like said, I think it was maybe the WHO, that somebody said like, oh, like it's not as asymptomatic as we think, and like within 6 hours she was like that was redacted, and she was fired. She was wrong, but like if you remember for like a day or two, we were it's not actually asymptomatic, and which is completely false. Like,
asymptomatic people are less likely to spread it. Yeah, I remember sharing that, and I'm just like, what? How is that?
Yeah, that was redacted really quickly, and a lot of agents came on like, no, she's wrong. So that's good. Like, at least there's,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care necessarily about, like, I shouldn't say I don't care. Like, I understand we're not going to get the full truth, but like, don't lie to us. Like they did at the beginning of it. Like, if this is something we're seriously facing, like, just give us the information and let us know, like, especially people whose livelihoods depend on it. And this isn't just like 2021 will be better. Say it gets cured and it's better in 2021, businesses are back at 100%. Like, there's going to be repercussions. Like, for me, like, so I get bonuses. That's a percentage of my salary. And I get one every quarter, and then I get one for the end of the year, which is based off my whole yearly salary, so it's pretty big. So for 2021, like, I'm not getting anything for I got my year bonus for 2019, so that's going to help my overall pay. But like, we were, looking to get at least two of them and push a third. Like, one wasn't possible, but so next year, if I'm not getting my yearly bonus, like, I'm taking in without any quarterly bonuses next year, because it's not going to be softball budgets and stuff, because people want to make their money back. Like, I mean, I'm probably on the lighter end of the spectrum, but like, my bosses are probably going to lose like $30,000 off their annual income just because
it's based on performance,
bonus.
Right?
Yeah, like, what can we do? And we're happy that we hit double-digit octave.
Yeah, you're turning around, but it's not like you guys are anywhere close to where you were last year.
No, I'm probably going to take a 15% pay cut next year, because I'm not going to get any my year-end bonus or anything like that.
That's another piece of data that we need to pay attention to year over year is, what are people's salaries and pay going to be? What is the job market going to look like? What's the unemployment rate going to look like? And what's the suicide rate going to look like? What's the number of foreclosures going to look like? What's the birth rate going to look like? We already have a shit birth rate in this country. You think it can't go a bit lower? Oh, I think we'll be pressing those numbers here pretty soon if you put people into an economic depression, and they're so accustomed to having such a quality of life that's far greater than the rest of the world.
Well, okay, so like, speaking of like the pay, like how much people are getting paid and stuff, like, I don't know if it's industry exclusive, but like, one nice thing about COVID is you can use it as an opportunity to get rid of bad employees. So like, there's a hotel downtown that he wasn't a bad employee, I can't say that, but he took another better job actually, but his job opened, and it's like this super nice, like, 4-star hotel that's looking for a director of sales, and they're offering $75,000 a year when that job's probably 105 before COVID. And every job I've seen posted for, from in management at least, is, at least 15 grand off what it was before all this. So this is gonna be nice, because you're gonna get some fresh blood in the market, and the only people that can afford to take these jobs are people who are financially secure enough that they can take a 15 grand hike, or people like me who's looking to get my foot in the door for a next step that I normally wouldn't have got because there's so much competition. Now my price point, because a step up in my career is a pay increase for me regardless, where other people would be a step down. So there's some good and bad things, but yeah, like, the job market, let me tell you, like, the salaries I'm seeing come out, like, are way lower than what they would have been before this.
Do you think that
Ryan.
What it might have to do with lack of competition, because I think that also plays a factor. If there's more people applying for a job, I guess you're going to go with the cheap guy or the more expensive guy. I don't think you're going to get as quality of people looking for jobs, like high quality people.
You think that's how it worked, but a lot of ownerships and stuff even before this would be like, I can get some people that are roughly the same, and one guy's 10 grand cheaper. I'm taking him. But
yeah,
it's not always like competition's a big factor, and especially people aren't, even if they're furloughed or laid off, like they're not forfeiting their jobs and looking for other ones because they won't get the same pay that they're currently getting. So, you don't have as many people applying. Like,
yeah,
I see all these jobs open and they stay open for months. And I don't know if it's because people aren't hiring, just because like right now you don't need a director of sales if you have someone on site that can handle the, 20 hours of work a week required for it. But it's interesting, and it's going to be long-term repercussions. I know, like, especially in like the restaurant industry, I think half the restaurants in downtown probably aren't going to make it. I heard at least 25% won't, and that's scary.
Yeah, that's what I wonder, who's going to recover. What's it going to look like afterwards? Because the restaurant business model is so hard to make any money off of. And now they're making it even more difficult. It might just be a negative business overall. People just shut them down.
You're paying yesterday's bills today or tomorrow's bills today. Like, you're always a step back because people think restaurants, you charge $30 for a steak. Like, right, I'm sure you know just as well as anybody what the cost of food and what labor and stuff, and the overhead's up there, and your profit margins are actually like really thin.
Yeah,
like you still like the owners still make money. Don't get me wrong.
It all depends on the business model. Your fast food restaurants are going to take the biggest hit because they run off of such thin margins. They're all about volume, and if their volume gets cut, they lose a big chunk of money. And your bigger restaurants, like I just think of Fogo de Chao. Those guys got to make so much fucking money selling their meat at however much it is, $50 a plate. So I think you'll see those fancier high-end restaurants stick around, but I could see a lot of fast food changing their whole business model or just going away entirely. Like I saw that Dunkin' Donuts is going to close like hundreds of stores next year.
So the fancier places for the bourgeoisie are going to stay open? You don't say. Tell me a bit more.
I even argue that, though, because most of those are in locations with high corporate taxes. So take like downtown, like your Fogo de Chao, for instance, like they're paying a lot more in rent than they are Beef O'Brady's in Andover. Their rents they have to pay. Like, there's one thing I got an email from the chamber talking about how minimum wage is still going up in Minneapolis. So people are more expensive.
My God.
No. It's split up between a few years. I think we're 2 or 3 years away from $15. It's going up to like $13.75.
13, 14, 15 or something like that.
Yeah, God. It's staggered.
I don't like it. You're going to have so much happen with just that alone, the minimum wage increase, like what that does. Like trying to manage my own restaurant and what a jump from, God, what was it, $7.25, and then we made minimum $10. That did a lot. No joke.
I don't know about Duluth, but like in downtown, at least, like the competition factor was before all this, that like you can offer minimum wage, but they're just gonna go to another restaurant, or like even hotels. Like no hotel pays your front desk people starting out at minimum wage. Right. It's you start out, $2-3 higher than that because everyone else is paying higher than that. So you're not going to get as good as employees because you aren't paying them. You're only paying the minimum wage. So, like, I want to know what the actual like mean wage in Minneapolis is when you factor in all these stores that places that don't offer more than it just to start.
It is higher than minimum for sure. I've talked to some business owners about that back when it was still like around $9 an hour. And they're like, I'm still hiring people at 10, 11, $12 an hour because that's what the market is.
Yep.
Government makes it worse.
Oh, 100%. And it's affecting, in other ways. Like, yes, just because you're hiring higher doesn't mean that the delivery drivers that are on your way or that are delivering your food, or the people packing the food and stuff like that, and all the other services you need to run that are charging minimum wage now have to pay more. So everything you're buying is going to cost more.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and dude, delivery drivers right now, especially in Minnesota, if you ever want to have a nice laid back gig and make some decent ching, just be a delivery driver. You automatically get $10 an hour. You're out driving around in your car, listening to music, doing what you want. All you got to do is go walk up to somebody's house, give them food, take the money, and you get an extra $5 on top of your $10 an hour. You take 3 deliveries. Huh?
You get more than that. My one of my co-managers does Uber. He does Uber on the side, and when everything was shut down, he didn't want to drive people, so he did only Uber Eats and like DoorDash. And he's saying like people are so generous that you're bringing the food to them, that they're tipping like $20 a time.
Right, and I mean even right now, I'm just thinking back to what it used to be. On average, you would get about 3, 4, maybe $5. But yeah, I mean if everybody's giving you at least $5, you can make $10 an hour. Plus, say you take 3 deliveries, you get $30 in tips today. You made $40 an hour driving food around. I mean, it's easy. I can't think of anything easier than that to make $40 an hour.
And like I know I tipped better when I knew like when I couldn't go out to eat and like I could only do delivery. Like if someone brought me the Buffalo Wild Wings I really wanted, like I'm like, yeah, I'll give you an extra $2 on it. Like it's not much, but you have 10 people do that, it's an extra $20 right there.
Yep.
But it's a great. I've considered it for like a side job, like even just like Uber Eats, DoorDash, you know, Postmark, whatever they are. Like sign up for them all. And
yeah, you just don't get as much out of those, but you get flexibility in your schedule. Because I don't think they pay you hourly; they just pay you per delivery.
But it'd be a part-time job, and you're taxed differently for them. I know.
Yeah.
But if you're smart and like you are an Uber or Lyft driver and you actually drive people, like you can put the money you save away from there away for taxes, and then you're pretty much untaxed at your other jobs, like your main job. If you're doing it as like a part-time or like side gig.
Sure.
That's what people are going to have to start doing here to be able to survive, because between, like you said, salaries looking to dip a bit with new positions being filled, as well as the money printer constantly going burr in the Federal Reserve, it seems like today's $5 is going to be about $3, so to speak, or at least worth $3 by the time we get to Jan 1, 2021. Because it's and again, just do the math here. If you constantly keep fucking printing money and devaluing the currency in such fashion, especially when things aren't being produced to keep up with the paper that's being printed out to account for it, you're going to end up with some fucking hyperinflation here.
Yeah.
And what happens when those of us who might even deem ourselves at the very least lower middle class get fucked over?
Yep.
You're going to fuck us out of certain things as well until the whole thing collapses. And then there's no guarantees that any of us get out.
Any money you have put away becomes worthless. Then you're left with nothing. It
sounds terrible though, but like it's kind of the system we've built, and I feel like yes, it's not good to keep printing money and stuff like that, but we've been printing money forever. Like yeah, we just did a lot for the stimulus packages and stuff, but like it's far from the first time we've just made a lot of extra money and printed it and stuff like that. It's been going on for years.
But history shows the depressions that come
be going on for years.
It does show, but I think that like on the model that John's talking about, like I think that we would have already been,
it takes time. It's going to be next year. It takes months for these things to play out. It's not like you print.
For 100 years, how does a 25-cent can of Coke now become 85 cents?
Demand.
Man,
I mean, people are paying it, so yeah.
But you have an overabundance of supply. Like there's pop everywhere. They need to keep moving it.
Like okay, look at your restaurants where in like your soda dispensers, your ice costs more than the actual the ice you put in your cup costs more than the pop you put in your cup.
I understand America is a fat country, but are we so fat that demand is the only explanation as to why pop is fucking more expensive today than it is a couple of fucking decades ago? I just don't buy that.
That's the only factor, but I don't think you're considering enough that business says I can charge $1.89 for a soda that costs me 3 cents for you to pour, if that.
I don't think demand is going to cause a 300% increase, though. A lot of it has to do with the buying power of the dollar. I mean, we saw that in Venezuela, too.
I mean, then why aren't we Venezuela yet? After all these years of printing money, putting wars on credit cards.
The United States military keeps pointing nukes at people.
Well, there's that, and we operate on a global currency, so I think we have a little bit more of a backbone to ours.
We are the global currency. Yeah. We don't operate off of it. We are it.
Yeah. So, I mean, if the U.S. dollar went down, you'd have a lot go down. So I see what you're saying.
It's going to be like that it's not impacting anything, or that inflation isn't real, deflation is not real. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that because of how big of scale we're playing on here, that I don't think that it's ever going to, I don't think the American dollar is going to just go flat out broke and be as worthless as toilet paper.
What we're talking about has only been over the past 100 years, because the Federal Reserve came in 1913, and that's when the devaluation started happening significantly. So I think it takes time, and as we print more and more money, like we doubled our cash base. Isn't that what it was? We had like 1.5 trillion in circulation, and then we put it up to another 1.5, so we have 3 trillion in circulation.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's good, but I'm just saying that it's not. I don't necessarily view it as, doomsday global.
Hasn't happened yet.
I think it'll take another 100 years before our dollar's absolutely worth. And who knows what we're going to move on to? We're going to evolve. We
should have fucking moved digital a while ago to undercut the fucking reserve. But again, nobody fucking hops on it. We're behind Europe in that fashion. Guys,
the government's involved, you'll never have your efficiency there either. So,
but what happens if China gets the digital currency done? Think about that, though. What if there becomes a new global currency? Then what happens to the U.S. dollar if people jump to something else?
I think the U.S. economy is big enough and impactful enough on the rest of the world that if we can, get in on yes, China goes, so they create their own.
We would have to change. We would have to adopt. That.
But the thing about China is that China's just as reliant on us as we are them. And why don't you think that our loans have defaulted? Or why don't you think that they
haven't called it in? I mean, besides that fleet in the South China Sea might have something to do with it. I don't know if we're as very reliant on them for a lot of the production of a lot of our electronics. We could easily find some fucking work in Central America, I think, or in Japan that would be able to, what's the word for it? Oh, what is the word? Mimic that kind of production that you're seeing outside in China or India. Fuck. India's right next door. They're a country of 1 billion people.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't think any of it's good. I'm just saying that I think that the rest of the world's so dependent on us that, say, if China did switch over, well, they just cut out their biggest, one of their biggest buyers, saying, oh, you have to switch to our money, so we can switch to it, but we're still going to have as much of an impact on the global economy no matter what currency we use. As, if it's a dollar, if it's Bitcoin, if it's whatever, we're going to have just the impact. Like, it's not good, but I think we'll survive.
China's having issues with its fucking infrastructure. More specifically, one of the dams that holds up one of its major rivers. So I'm not so sure what their prestige is going to look like if that dam breaks and 30 million people get washed away. But what's 30 million people to the Chinese?
Yeah, exactly.
1.3 billion, You can't
have the country wiped out either. I mean, because we still do rely on them. And that's the thing I hate about the isolationists, that we should have our own supply chains here of everything, and you're not gonna be able to afford it with what you're paying over there compared to what you're paying here.
Minimum wages are here. Yeah.
So what?
We're paying a supply chain from other countries at the cost you're getting it for, and you can't have everything. I'm fine with people buying American-made stuff, but if everything in this country was solely American-made, things would be a lot more expensive than they are.
Just go to Latin America. It fucking solves so many problems. So many people come here from Latin America to try to find work and shit like that. Fucking just send the work there. So what? Yeah. You're paying a dime to some Chinese kid in a sweatshop. You'll be fucking paying a quarter to some Latin American kid in a sweatshop. A 15-cent profit. I understand, like you said, once you fucking increase that number out a bit more, it becomes a bit of a ding in the profit margins. But you know what? A lot of this shit regarding federal welfare to legal aliens and the budget for trying to patrol the border, not to mention the social effects of illegal immigration and all this other shit. It seems like it's just a smart move to try to mitigate Chinese influence on the U.S. market. To solve this issue regarding illegal immigration that we have from Latin America, because a lot of those people are trying to come here for some sort of work, and it shores up the supply chain. So that's something like we just saw with COVID in the electronics industry doesn't need to happen again.
Try buying a Nintendo Switch, and exactly what you mean.
I'm not saying it'd be fucking easy. None of this shit would be easy, considering how fucking ingrained we are with the Chinese since Nixon. Mm-hmm. For fuck's sake, realize where we are. We're in a fucking Cold War with them, and we're in an economic arms race with them. Mm-hmm. And they haven't been, they're not an honest broker. I'm not saying we are either, but I know what team I'm on,
Well, speaking of illegal immigration, do you see that ICE is sending a bunch of international students? They're kicking them out of the country.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, I did see that.
I don't know the validity of it, but I read something about that last night. I'm like, oh, wow, that's probably not good. I am fine with illegal immigrants coming over here for a better life. I mean, you shouldn't vote. You should pay taxes. Like, I don't agree with taxes, but if you're going to be here working, why should I have to pay it and you don't? It's my philosophy.
It's the game, right? It's the welfare state that you appeal to.
Yeah, make the process easier to become a citizen. Like, that essentially, we're all immigrants philosophy.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it'd be better if we built out other countries. It makes more sense because we can't have everybody come here. And then what do we do with the other areas of the world? Like, why don't we just build them out?
Yeah, it's just going to cost us a pretty dime to get there. But, I mean, in the long term, that's probably the best solution.
Because it's not like everybody from China wants to come over here or everybody from European countries want to come over here. It's just countries that don't have anything. They don't have any sort of economy.
I mean, you do have people marching, in caravans from other countries to a country that's literally ran by Hitler. So I don't understand that necessarily, but it's happening. That's the thing. Everyone rips. We're run by Hitler, but yet everyone still wants to come here, and this country sucks.
Nobody has any idea how either the Italian fascist or Nazi German systems operated. So for them to make any of those kind of claims are really fucking ridiculous.
It's the go-to line here. Well,
of course it is, but they're going to undercut that like they've undercut the word racist.
Speaking of which, have either of you checked your white privilege today?
I've not.
I'm a German. I'm not white.
You better get on that, Ryan. Or cancel it. So
I don't even know how to check it. I don't even know how to check it.
What's more dangerous, coronavirus or cancel culture?
Oh, Jesus.
Cancel culture,
feel like
probably.
That's ideological. Ideology is oftentimes a lot more dangerous than disease, save for a couple of exceptions.
History,
so I would
say, yeah.
I think
it doesn't seem like cancel culture more than it seems like the next great leap forward.
I don't know who tweeted it yesterday, but I think I retweeted like the only war that matters right now is the culture war. And the right is ignoring it, and they're acting like they can just go ahead and lose, and everything will be.
The right lost. Yeah. The right's only chance of any sort of victory is to attach to the center, who's had enough of this fucking bullshit from the left. Well, center's the only one that can win.
That's the promise that's the problem that you have with Trump is that people, on the right definitely thought, okay, we can take back the culture war. And it kind of backfired.
He had no interest in it. Well, zero interest in it. He seemed to have zero interest in actual governance for his first 2 years when he had the House.
Well, okay, to be fair, didn't foreign presidents have, full majority for like 6 years and weren't able to do anything?
I mean, they could still stop it.
What? Their failures. There's no fairness. Trump failed as well then.
He's not a real politician, as people like to say.
I'm not going to make excuses for him. He made promises he has not kept those promises.
No, I'm not either. I'm just saying that I don't think you can, say that's solely a thing that he did because
I'm not particularly concerned on fairness here. I understand McCain screwed him over. Romney just tried to impeach him, and he fucking threw in with Romney when Romney was running for senator in Utah, and he had a credible primary opponent. Where the fuck was Trump to try and get Romney out, knowing that he was going to be a political adversary that he insulted? Now he's trying to fuck over
40 chess.
Of course not. Now he's trying to fuck over Jeff Sessions, who had AG, but a consistent MAGAite, right? And he's going for fucking Tommy Tuberville, whose campaign is run by a bunch of never-Trumpers. He is not hip to this fucking game, and he has put a lot of people around him listening to their advice that he should not. It's on him.
Yeah.
It's on him. He is fucking failed over and over again. I can't even be mad at Jared Kushner. I can't be mad at him because Trump has to be the one that listens to him. No, it's not as if he said, hey, Jared, run this portion of the country. Trump's the guy in charge. And he keeps fucking up over and over and over again.
He's running like
no immigration reform. No taking a look at all the immigration abuse by tech over on the West Coast, who could easily hire American citizens, but instead will get all the green cards possible, try and put some Indian individual who's looking for a job in America and pay them less and extort them in their position and leave the qualified American out.
Oh my God!
No sort of
who's not following up on his campaign promises. Oh my God, that never happened before.
I'm still going to be mad at him like I'm mad at every other fucking politician who fails.
Hey,
bring the military home.
Question someone might be able to answer for me. What happened with Justin Amish and the Libertarian Party? Why did he pull out of that so fast?
Because Amash wasn't getting support? I don't know.
Because we're libertarians. I mean, just look at us.
Yeah, but he's like the gold standard.
He's more Republican than libertarian.
But you want to win, or do you want to get less than 5% of the vote when you have two of the worst candidates in history?
I don't think they're going to win either way. I mean, again, it's an attempt to try and
it's again
momentum to take votes from both sides.
Get 5% of the vote, and you get federal funding for 4 years. You want to get into the debates? That's how you start. You get 5%
insane,
of the
by
vote.
the way.
Joe Jorgensen or whatever is a fucking hockey mom. It's Gary Johnson 2.0, and it's so frustrating. She's gonna get it.
I don't think she's as bad as Gary, but it could end up going that way. We'll see if she actually gets any airtime.
He fell off the cliff. I remember in the 2012 elections. But to be fair, I'd rather have a president bomb Aleppo like Gary Johnson did compared to how Trump did. So
that's not even his worst gaffe, dude. There's so many things he did where I'm just like, what the fuck are you doing? He's just acting like a clown. Well,
Bill Weld was the stupidest thing he did too. A career Republican.
Yep. Yeah,
and libertarians are the worst. I've denounced the party a long time, or in 2016, and I consider myself libertarian, more of a constitutionalist than anything. But
sure.
They're so ineffective, and they're so bad at what they do, and there's so much infighting, and it's such a bad party. It's such a bad party model.
Right.
And I've just given up on them, and I got my hopes up because I'm like, oh, maybe he can actually do something and make waves, and nothing.
No.
It's such a bad party, and I don't support the LP. And the LP is such a joke. It's so ineffective.
Yep. Well, when you get people that they go up on the stage naked or taking their shirts off and just
leave McCaffrey out of this.
Not even him. It's just other people.
Leave him out of it, Ryan.
I'm not even going to go to him. I'm not even going to him. There's so many people within the Libertarian Party that have just given it a bad name. So I agree with you. I don't even like to associate with it as much as I am maybe libertarian at heart. But
yeah,
they
should have chosen. They should have chosen Austin Peterson.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And I 100% understand why you chose Gary Johnson, because you want the name recognition.
Yeah.
And the problem is he came out flat.
AP would have killed it.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with AP, and I like AP, but if if he would have gotten into debates, he wouldn't have been effective because he's pure attack. He doesn't answer questions. He doesn't, defend himself. He's 100% like on the attack, and that doesn't look good. People don't like that, and you're not going to get anyone to maybe consider being a libertarian. You're just going to get the same people who always vote libertarian who love it, and they're all about it. But you aren't going to sway other voters because you're going to like, this guy's an asshole.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, but I've also seen some footage of AP where I felt like he did a pretty good job.
No, I agree.
I don't think he's all combative.
I think back to the debates at the national convention, and what did he keep saying? They're talking about like the some cutting off power in like a rural area, and Gary Johnson's like, well, we could fund that, and he like, it's something reasonable, like an actual facet the government should perform, and he like went off on him about it, and I just don't. I think he was too raw at that time.
Yeah,
and I don't know. Like I think they should have chosen him still, and I would have definitely been happy with that. I really like him. I still listen to him a lot, but like he's kind of at the same time like old news now. And he tried to run as a Republican in his home state for a Senate, and he lost pretty bad. But ever since that, he's been pretty quiet, except for his own show and stuff. And it's like, okay, you lost a great chance. But anytime a libertarian goes to Republican Party, it's like, okay, yeah, I get it. You want to win, but like,
but then Republicans jump to the Libertarian Party just like that, and they take the front view of the whole party. Everybody just looks to them.
And now the interesting part is going to be because I've been saying it forever about the left and being so split between your moderate base, your purple voters, and your progressive base, and how eventually they're going to have to choose a side. And you might think something like the Green Party could definitely take advantage of those progressive voters. And like, I fucking hate Jill Stein. Like, I don't think she's running again, but like, if Bernie, like,
we'll see.
When Bernie got cucked by Hillary, which is one of my favorite parts of 2016. But Jill Stein pretty much said, like, hey, I'll take my name off the ticket and I'll even be your VP. Like, I'll give you the presidential like nomination for the Green Party if you want it. And he didn't want anything to do with it, which proves how big a sellout he is.
He would have won. I really think that. He could actually think about that. He could have been a Green Party winner right there.
Yeah. And his philosophies fit almost perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Green's the new red, but
he would have won again this year. But
the
DNC is so corrupt that they don't want Bernie for whatever reason. I don't know why, but they don't want to put him up there, even though he would win.
Because the DNC itself is not that progressive. They just feed off progressive votes.
Sure.
Like the DNC's policies, like look at Hillary Clinton. Like she's a carbon copy of Dick Cheney, and they choose their perfect candidate.
So they're just pandering to the ideology to get the votes, but then it's going to be broken promises like what John's bitching about.
Yeah, and all it's going to be is it's the Republicans' fault because they didn't pass this or they didn't pass that, just like Obamacare. Yeah. They always have a way out. The left is unstoppable. And like I said before, if progressives ever find like an actual leader, like somebody who can actually lead and be effective and isn't soft like Bernie, like that they can rally behind and agree on, like
I don't think they'll find that.
I don't either, but if they ever do, this country
they're too based in emotion. That's not logical.
You can find somebody like Lenin who is based in emotion but also had enough logic behind him to be able to at least make some kind of sense, whether it's faulty or not. You got to be fucking careful about assuming that they won't find that particular person, because
I just don't know who it is.
All it takes is one Mein Kampf for one particular little revolution, and all of a sudden that person is before you.
Yeah.
Even if there's failure before, like the beer hall puts.
The progressive left is genius too. Like, how long have they had us duped? Like that, we thought they were a bunch of look at they put AOC in office and she fucks up, and like how long have they had us think that they're just a bunch of idiots when really they're not? Like,
as the actual people who are behind it are weaving their web through particular important areas of society, like the education system and academia. Those two are separate things, by the way. The education system is compulsory education, and it's the public school system that we see. Not only that, but also, you have all these activist judges, like activist DAs. 11 felony counts for a cop who shot a man who discharged a lethal weapon back at them after stealing it from them in the first place. And now you have a couple being charged for a hate crime covering up a BLM mural. Yeah. No hate crimes, but no hate crimes for pulling down a statue of a Catholic saint in the same state. The same state. So the state is specifically mandating one form of supposedly peaceful protest to be acceptable,
and the other
calling
one's a crime.
The other one vandalism and a hate crime.
Yep. Like I said, we've been duped. I think we've all been tricked. Like we've just sat there a bunch of idiots for how long? And
what if Trump was the fuel they needed to get all this stuff going?
Yep.
What if they wanted Trump all along because they knew that they could cause mass division by using him?
Been creating mass division since W, or not even since W, since fucking LBJ, and leading all the way up into Reagan and Bush and Clinton and Obama. Forgot this bad. It's been progressive. I mean, obviously things never got bad when particular political parties or organizations first sprung up onto the scene. But obviously the progressives, or that wing of the Democrats, have obviously learned from those places. It's like in France in the 70s when the Iron Curtain was finally revealed for what it was. And all of the little Marxists and communists there who had been saying for years how the Soviet Union was actually superior to the Western ideals of, the French Republic, the United Kingdom, and the United States, the Allied victors of World War II. All of a sudden, the Iron Curtain comes down. You learn about the Holodomor, the gulags, Stalin's purges, the NKVD into the KGB, Beriev, etc. And they shut the fuck up. But they learned from that. They learned and they took a different action. Academia has always been left-leaning. Yeah. It's woven it so that it's ironically progressively grown to this point where you now have a whole generation of shock troops who basically see any kind of opposition or protest to what their cause and movement is as being Nazis. And a lot of these kids are basically indebted. They're indebted by a education system that has essentially funneled them into these schools that have been getting government funding through the subsidization of loans for decades now. Hey kids, you want to go to college? We'll pay for it. We'll pay for it. You don't have to worry. We'll get you the loan. You'll just pay us back later, with no guarantee that a lot of those jobs are going to be there. You fucked the economy over by not having enough actual laborers who produce things.
I know exactly.
And instead,
what you're talking about.
you've shifted the economy not into a goods produced sort of economic structure. The actual goods are being produced in China and other foreign areas, and instead you have people who are operating in
you're building an ideology
where places where in industries where goods aren't being produced per se. That you're not producing like trucks or building houses or all the other important stuff that you need. Instead, what you're doing is creating psychologists and HR managers.
You're
and
just offering services. That's basically
exactly. It's a service-based economy. It's not a goods-based economy. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with the service space, but if you have too many individuals going into that portion of the economic structure, obviously jobs are going to run short, especially if you put them into fields of study which aren't going to have high yields of employment after school. So what are you left to do? well, I'll just be a coffee barista and think that the whole system's fucking flawed.
Right.
And I'll listen to whoever is going to tell me the system is flawed, and whatever it is they're going to tell me is the positive change is what I'm going to go along with. Because at that point, they're radicalized. They're $40,000 in debt. They don't have a fucking job like they were, quote unquote, promised,
They become desperate.
even though no real promise was ever made. But assurances were kind of implied when
Through
the guidance
school
counselors
system.
were fucking when the guidance counselors were telling them, "Hey, this is the future."
It's the way to go.
Oh, all that. We should have fucking listened to Derby a lot more. Jesus Christ.
I don't know about that.
Gary feels a little differently. I see exactly what you're saying, though. I felt that same way all throughout high school, and then when I got into college, I just felt like I was getting pushed through this thing. It's like I struggled the whole way because I'm like, something doesn't seem right. I feel like I'm gonna end up just jobless, like all these other people I'm talking to. I'm gonna be in a shit ton of debt. I'm gonna just struggle. So I'm just gonna stop now before it gets too bad.
Right, but a lot of people didn't stop, and now it's a whole fucking generation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole generation of these people who have had left leaning is almost generous of a term. It is fully left. There's hardly there's hardly a right perspective in academia, whether it's the public education system or whether it's in higher education / academia, as we might want to refer to it as. So you have this continuation for generations. Now you get to the generation where it's fully manifested, where houses aren't available, the jobs aren't available, the debt is constantly climbing, value of what you're getting paid constantly goes down because the currency gets, devalued. And instead of the fucking hard work, which is looking at all the different bits of legislation that has been passed over the course of 50-odd years that have made this possible, instead, the solution is, well, the economic system of capitalism and undertones of the democratic system of English parliamentarianism is broken. We must dismantle it and replace it because both are repressive on... they will say people of color... What you see more is just class warfare. This is Marxism. It just, everything points to the shit that you saw in Maoist China with the Cultural Revolution. It points and harbors back to the October Revolution of the Bolsheviks. It's so plain to see. It just is.
Take a breath, bud. It's all right. Yeah. Ryan, what were you gonna say?
No, I just agree with them. I probably would have went down the same road if I would have just stuck through college, and maybe my ideology would be completely different. But when I was 19 or so, 20, I don't even remember when I stopped going to college, but it was only like a year and a half, 2 years, and I can see how I just completely split, but how I could be one of these people that we're bitching about right now. It wouldn't have been too hard for me to be in that same boat, because I would have been a Bernie supporter, most likely. I'd want my college debt wiped because I'd have probably like $40-some thousand in debt, but I just turned into a worker. I'm like, you know what? I'd rather make money than be in debt. And I think that the problem lies with what you're talking about, the school system and how they educate people and make you feel like you have to go to college. You have to be thousands of dollars in debt. And then once you go through all that and you end up, with your degree and you're jobless, you feel
somehow
fucked
you'll
over.
get ahead, right?
Yeah.
Somehow you'll get ahead.
But you don't realize that it's the school system that fucked you over. You think it's the economy, the government, they're the problem. And the government needs to fix it, so you look to governments to solve this. I see
That's not fair answer either. I'm actually really surprised that more talk about college forgiveness hasn't been brought up with COVID. I know that payment or interest has been suspended till September, but I'm really surprised it hasn't been thrown out more. Just because now's the time to strike. The iron's hot. Yeah. I don't know. I have a college degree I don't use. It's in public health, which is actually really, really relevant right now. But for my job, I make, decent money, very livable income.
Right.
I can buy myself a nice bottle of scotch if I want, but I don't need a degree for this. I mean, going through growing up in management and learning how to be a manager and be a leader and effectively get people to do what they want, like, or what I need them to do. Like, I've hired people that have degrees, and like I almost refuse at this point to hire people that have degrees in hotel management. They think that they can just jump in right away and go into like a manager role without earning it at like the front desk level or a lower paying level. And like, I've seen people who come out of school and very good hospitality, very good. Like UW Stout's one of the best in the country, and like people come out and they think that they're entitled to a position that I, with my public health degree, had to work for 4 years at a front desk in college, paying my bills with. I had to sacrifice my nights and weekends in college, and just to A, pay the bills, and B, eventually grow into this career. Like, I don't need a degree for what I do.
Yep.
Like, not at all. And I see kids come in, 22 years old. Oh, I went to wherever, UW Stout, and I got a degree in hotel management. Be like, okay, have you worked in a hotel before? No. I'm like, then you don't know anything.
Right.
It's it's any job. You have to acquire the skills and the knowledge to like perform at a certain level.
Yep.
And you don't get that by like, yes, they teach you how to read a star report. Like, okay, like you can learn that on your own pretty easily. They teach you how to, budget and follow a budget. And so it's like stuff that you'll learn pretty quickly just through on the job training and like application doing it. And like, I'm still learning stuff, but I would never have learned it in, hotel school.
Right. And it's like they think they have tenure by going through college. It's like, no, you have no experience. You don't have 5 years under your belt. You have zero. Even though you went through 4 years of college, you have absolutely no experience and you know absolutely nothing about the industry. You have an idea of what it's like, and you'll end up in situations where you're a little bit ahead. But as far as like the day-to-day dealing with people, that's a whole different ballgame than reading out of a book.
Even the system, like Hilton uses a program called OnQ for like our reservations, and everything goes through that. And like a bunch of them out there, and like you get these kids and they're like, okay, well, do you know how to use OnQ? No, what's that? It's like the number one like hotel management system in the country, like in the world. Like, have you ever seen this? I've seen pictures of it. Like, okay, maybe if you wanted to do it right, like specifically for like hotel management, like the classes you take, instead of taking a budgeting class, which is not that hard to learn budget in a business, like you can spend this much or you can't spend this much, like save this much. And like, there's some things you learn, well, they don't teach there, but like, okay, instead of teaching that for a class or doing that 4 times, say, okay, let's do a systems where you're going to learn how to use Marriott system. You're going to learn how to use IHG system, Hilton system. Like, there's so many better ways to do it. And like,
absolutely.
You should absolutely have to do like your internship shouldn't be in a management role. Like every hotel management, like pretty much you go and shadow a job, like a food and beverage manager or like a front desk manager. No, like you should have to work at a hotel for a year.
Yeah, get some actual on the job experience.
Yeah. But the thing is, if you did that, people would realize, what the hell am I going to school for?
Why am I going to school? Yeah. A lot of companies will train you and get you to where you need to be. You don't need to go thousands in debt. Yeah, if people realize that. Because everything I've learned, I feel like I learned from Papa John's. I went through so much training, going down to the cities, 3-day seminars, things like that. Things that I never learned in high school, college, whatever. It was just specific to the business that I'm in. Just like you're talking about with hotels. Learn about the business that you're going to be in.
Yeah, and even just like the learning to manage people, which is the number one priority of your job when you're level management, even upper level management. It's like learning how to manage people. My first ever salaried manager job, all of my employees were like, or a majority of my employees, about 80% of them were like women old enough to be my mom or grandma. And you're a 24-year-old kid and you have to lead and manage these people. And you want to learn how to be a leader. You do that, or just like even get like a shit employee. Like your first shit employee is a manager, like the one that doesn't show up on time, always calls off, or the ones, or even worse, someone who's really good at their, like when they show up or when they're there, they're really good, but they have a huge attitude problem. They have something else that you can't look past, but it's so hard to get rid of them because damn it, they're good. Like, learning how to manage that, you don't learn that at school.
Yep. And that
Like,
because there's so many variables. There's so many different people. Like I know exactly what you're talking about. I could think back to 20 some fucking people where they're just all over the spectrum, but I had to get rid of them.
yeah,
And that
and like
takes know-how, experience.
yep, and like the first time you have to fire someone, like you have to be pretty cold blooded not to feel anything the first time you have to fire a person.
Mm-hmm. It took a
Like,
while before I got to that point.
yeah, like it's like I haven't had to fire anyone in a long time, but like the first time I had to fire someone was like really hard because I felt so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're going in there, you think of all the good things they've done, and like, but then like you get in there and you go through the stuff, and you kind of get pissed off again. You're like, okay, that's I don't know, it's hard. Like
it is hard. I had a guy, he just started crying when I let him go.
Oh yeah.
Like just bawling his eyes out, and he's like, "What? It's unfair." I'm like, "Dude, you just dicked around. You weren't focused. You hardly did anything. Not productive. You're hitting on the other staff here. Like, I can't
Yeah.
like you're just being a college kid. Like, you're not working."
Yeah, I got one for you. It was when I worked in St. Paul. We had to get rid of a gal because she wasn't really like she just could not grasp the concept. It was too busy for her being in a downtown hotel to work the front desk. Like she was having a hard time learning the system. She, we got rushes and she, essentially useless. And I don't think she'll listen to this, but like, so me and my front office manager brought her in and sat her down and like, hey, like, we have to let you go. And we explained like, you're just not up to speed yet. And like you could have a future in this industry, but you should go to a suburb hotel where it's slower and you can actually take the time to learn what you need to learn. Like I can give you recommendations. Like I'll throw my name out there for you. Like,
yeah.
And so we let her go and she, she cried and she understood, she was nice. And me and my front office manager sat around. This is like 1:00. Her shift ended at 3. And we like got rid of her at 1 and we just sat there and BS for like the next hour and a half. And at 3:00, she comes back in like, oh, what are you still doing? And she goes, oh, I just finished my shift. Do you want my uniform? We're like, what? She's like, yeah, I finished my shift. I'm like, we fired you.
We let you go.
Like, if I get fired, like, I'm fucking out of there. Like,
yeah.
Like,
oh my God.
This place, like, taking everything I can. Like, but yeah, she finished. Like, we fired her, and I guess we didn't pay enough attention. She just went and finished her shift. I've never seen that before. Never will see it again, I bet.
I doubt it. Well,
and it's just the oddest thing. I'm like, huh.
That makes you wonder, did you make the right call? I don't know.
No, we did.
Yeah.
We did. But yeah, it's
funny.
just like, yeah, she meant good. She just couldn't handle it. But it's like, yeah.
I can see that.
Like, okay. Like, or even if you're not like, oh, after this place, you're like, okay, well, I can't, I just got fired for a job and I'm a 19-year-old kid. Like, probably never been fired before.
Mm-hmm.
And like, this job doesn't mean anything to me. It's like she was going to nursing school and she just needed some money. So, like, I don't know. It's just the oddest thing.
Yeah, right.